The gentle spring rain tapped against the expansive glass windows of Elysium, Milan's most exclusive luxury boutique. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast prismatic reflections across Italian marble floors, so polished they mirrored the exquisite designer pieces displayed like museum artifacts. A woman in faded jeans and an oversized charcoal sweater stood quietly examining a delicate silk scarf, her rain-dampened hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, raindrops still clinging to her shoulders. The contrast between her understated presence and the opulence surrounding her couldn't have been more stark. But what happened next would leave everyone in the boutique completely speechless. From behind her designer desk, Vivian Blackwood, Elysium's imperious manager, narrowed her eyes at the ordinary-looking customer who dared to touch the €2,000 Hermes scarf with such casual disregard. Little did she know that her next actions would not only shatter her carefully crafted professional facade, but would become the humbling moment that would follow her for the rest of her career. Welcome to another incredible true story that proves appearances truly can be deceiving, and that how we treat others reveals everything about who we really are. If you're joining us for the first time, leave a comment letting us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing celebrity encounters coming tomorrow. The Temple of Luxury. Elysium wasn't just a boutique, it was an institution, a temple to luxury, where Milan's elite came not merely to shop, but to be seen shopping. Nestled between the historic buildings of the Quadrilatero della Moda, the city's fashion district, its dramatic facade of black marble and gold trim announced its exclusivity before one even stepped through its imposing doors. Inside, the three-story boutique hummed with the quiet energy of wealth, the subtle rustling of shopping bags bearing names like Gucci, Prada, and Versace, the discreet murmurs of personal shoppers attending to clients, the occasional pop of a champagne cork as a VIP customer was seated in one of the private viewing lounges. The scent of expensive perfume mingled with the boutique's signature fragrance, a custom blend of sandalwood, amber, and something indefinably exclusive that cost €300 per bottle and was spritzed throughout the space hourly by white-gloved attendants. On this particular rainy Tuesday afternoon, the store was relatively quiet. A Saudi princess examined diamond-encrusted watches with her entourage in a corner lounge. Two famous football players' wives compared identical handbags in different colors near the escalator. A well-known Italian film director pretended to shop while actually avoiding his deadlines. And then there was the woman in the faded jeans, standing alone by the scarf display, seemingly oblivious to the unwritten rule that Elysium was not a place for browsing, but for decisive, extravagant purchasing. Alexandra Chen had entered the boutique 20 minutes earlier, slipping in from the rain without fanfare. The security guard had given her a once-over and almost stopped her, her casual attire and lack of obvious signifiers of wealth setting off his well-trained radar. But something in her confident yet gentle demeanor made him hesitate just long enough for her to pass by with a warm smile and a quiet "thank you." Now she stood examining the hand-painted Hermes scarf with genuine appreciation, her slender fingers tracing the intricate design with the reverence of someone who understood true craftsmanship. Despite her simple appearance, there was something compelling about her, a centered calmness, an authentic presence that seemed almost out of place in the carefully curated atmosphere of Elysium. What none of the boutique staff realized as they exchanged meaningful glances about the inappropriately dressed customer was that Alexandra Chen wasn't just any customer. As the accomplished architect and philanthropist wife of one of Hollywood's most beloved actors, she could have purchased the entire scarf collection without denting her bank account. But Alexandra's relationship with luxury had always been complex. She appreciated beautiful things for their artistry and heritage, not for the status they conferred. And watching her with increasing irritation from her elevated desk platform was Vivian Blackwood, who had built her entire identity around her position as Elysium's manager and guardian of its exclusive standards. The gatekeeper. Vivian Blackwood cut an intimidating figure in her perfectly tailored Chanel suit, her platinum blonde hair swept into a severe chignon that emphasized her sharp cheekbones and perpetually pursed lips. At 45, she had spent over 2 decades climbing the ladder of luxury retail, sacrificing personal relationships and any semblance of work-life balance to reach her current position. As manager of Elysium for the past 5 years, Vivienne had developed a reputation for two things: her encyclopedic knowledge of luxury goods and her unapologetic elitism. She prided herself on her ability to read customers within seconds, distinguishing between the truly wealthy and those merely aspiring to appear so. This skill had served the boutique well, allowing her to direct her staff's attention to those most likely to make significant purchases while diplomatically discouraging time wasters. Vivienne's personal life was as carefully curated as the boutique displays she oversaw. Her apartment featured in design magazines, her social media presence was a masterclass in cultivated sophistication, and her circle of friends consisted exclusively of people who enhanced her image or professional standing. For Vivienne, luxury wasn't just a career, it was the lens through which she viewed human worth, including her own. As she watched the casually dressed woman touch the Hermès scarf, something about the scene bothered her more than usual. Perhaps it was the genuine appreciation in the woman's eyes that seemed to challenge Vivienne's belief that only those who presented themselves impeccably could truly understand luxury. Or perhaps it was simply that on this rainy day, with fewer elite clients to attend to, Vivienne had the time and inclination to address what she perceived as an affront to Elysium standards. She descended from her platform with practiced grace, her Louboutin heels clicking purposefully across the marble floor. Her staff straightened imperceptibly as she passed, recognizing the determined expression that typically preceded what they secretly called a Vivienne special. Her artful way of making unwanted customers feel so uncomfortable, they left voluntarily, all while maintaining a veneer of professional courtesy. "Good afternoon," Vivienne said as she approached, her voice carrying the precise temperature of an ice cube wrapped in silk. "I couldn't help but notice your interest in our Hermès collection." Alexandra looked up with a warm, genuine smile that momentarily disarmed Vivienne. "Yes, the craftsmanship is extraordinary. This particular design, is it from their new collection? The brushwork reminds me of traditional Chinese watercolors." Vivienne blinked, surprised by the knowledgeable observation. She recalibrated slightly, but maintained her cool demeanor. "Indeed, it's part of their limited Asia-inspired series. Only 50 were produced worldwide." She paused deliberately before adding, "They're priced at €200. The statement hung in the air, not quite a question, but a clear invitation for Alexandra to acknowledge whether such an item was within her reach. Alexandra nodded thoughtfully, still examining the scarf. The artist has captured the essence of the tradition while bringing something new. That's rare. Vivienne's irritation grew at the non-response to her price signal. She tried again, her tone sharpening slightly. "We have some lovely costume jewelry on the lower level that might be more accessible if you're just browsing today." For the first time, Alexandra's eyes met Vivienne's directly, and the boutique manager was startled by their calm intensity. There was no embarrassment there, no intimidation, just a quiet assessment that made Vivienne, accustomed to being the one doing the evaluating, feel unexpectedly exposed. "I'm actually looking for a gift," Alexandra said simply. "Something special for my husband's assistant. She's been instrumental in coordinating his projects the past few years." Vivienne's smile tightened. An assistant's gift. Clearly this woman was out of her depth. "How thoughtful. Perhaps something small from our business accessories collection. We have card holders starting at €350. A young sales associate named Marco had drifted within earshot, intrigued by the unusual interaction. Unlike Vivienne, who saw only the casual clothes and lack of visible luxury markers, Marco noticed other details about Alexandra: the perfect, if subtle, manicure, the quiet confidence, the way she handled the products with the ease of someone familiar with quality. He hovered nearby, increasingly uncomfortable with his manager's approach. "I had something more meaningful in mind," Alexandra replied, unruffled by Vivienne's increasingly transparent attempts to redirect her. "She mentioned once how much she loves traditional Asian art. When I saw this scarf in the window, it seemed perfect." Vivienne let out a small, practiced laugh. "Well, that's certainly generous for an assistant. Perhaps I can show you our new collection of Elysium-branded notebooks. They make lovely corporate gifts and start at only €120. At the nearby counter, Marco winced at his manager's condescension, though he'd seen this routine dozens of times before. What made this instance particularly uncomfortable was the quiet dignity with which the customer was responding, and the growing suspicion in his mind that Vivienne had severely misread the situation. The escalation. What might have remained a typically uncomfortable Elysium encounter for a customer deemed unsuitable was about to transform into something entirely different. As Vivienne continued her subtle campaign to redirect Alexandra to less expensive merchandise, the boutique's front doors swung open, bringing with them a gust of rain-scented air and the unmistakable energy that accompanies genuine celebrity. Several heads turned, including Marco's, but Vivienne remained focused on her mission, her back to the entrance. Alexandra, however, glanced over and a soft smile transformed her face. "I think I'll take this one," she said, returning her attention to Vivienne and indicating the Hermès scarf. "And perhaps you could show me those diamond studs in the display case, the small star-shaped ones." Vivienne's eyebrows rose fractionally. The earrings in question were priced at €12,000. "Those are Tiffany, one of a kind for Elysium," she said, her tone making it clear she found the request presumptuous. "Perhaps we should start with the scarf and see if that meets your gift-giving needs." It was at this moment that Marco, still watching the door, nearly dropped the inventory tablet he was holding. Making his way through the boutique with the unhurried confidence of someone completely comfortable in his own skin was none other than Keanu Reeves. The actor was dressed simply in black jeans and a well-worn leather jacket, his hair slightly damp from the rain, carrying a motorcycle helmet tucked under one arm. What made the moment even more surreal was how few people immediately recognized him. Keanu had always possessed the remarkable ability to move through public spaces with a kind of mindful anonymity, his laid-back demeanor and lack of entourage allowing him to blend in despite his fame. Marco looked frantically from Keanu to Vivienne and the woman she was still subtly denigrating, his eyes widening as he connected the dots seconds before anyone else in the boutique. He stepped forward, intending to intervene, but it was too late. "Sorry I'm late," Keanu said as he approached Alexandra, his distinctive voice instantly recognizable. He leaned down to place a gentle kiss on her cheek. The meeting ran long, and then the rain. "It's fine," Alexandra replied warmly. "I was just looking at this scarf for Jennifer. Remember how she mentioned loving Chinese art at the foundation dinner?" Keanu nodded, examining the scarf with genuine interest. "It's beautiful. She'll love it." He turned toward Vivienne with the unaffected kindness for which he was famous. "Hi there, I'm Keanu." The transformation that occurred in Vivienne Blackwood at that moment was something to behold. Marco would later describe it to his friends as watching someone's entire worldview collapse in real time. Her face, normally controlled to perfection, cycled through expressions of shock, mortification, and panic before settling into a rictus of professional courtesy. "Mr. Reeves," she managed, her voice several octaves higher than normal, "it's an absolute honor to welcome you to Elysium. I've been assisting your—" She faltered, the word wife seeming to stick in her throat as the full magnitude of her mistake dawned on her. "My wife, Alexandra," Keanu supplied helpfully, seemingly unaware of the manager's distress. "She has an amazing eye for quality." Several nearby customers had now noticed the famous actor's presence, and a subtle ripple of recognition moved through the boutique. The Saudi princess paused her watch examination. The football players' wives abandoned their handbag deliberations. The film director suddenly found something fascinating about the men's cufflink display near Keanu. Vivienne's mind raced desperately. Had Keanu heard how she'd been speaking to his wife? How long had he been in the store? Could she salvage this catastrophic situation? "Mrs. Chen Reeves has indeed been admiring our finest pieces," Vivienne said with a frantic brightness that sounded almost manic compared to her usual measured tone. "I was just about to show her our exclusive diamond collection." Alexandra met Vivienne's eyes with that same calm gaze, but now there was something else there, not anger or triumph, but something that looked disconcertingly like compassion. It was this, more than anything, that caused Vivienne's carefully constructed facade to truly crack. Actually, Alexandra said gently, I think we were discussing whether the scarf or the earrings would be more appropriate for Jennifer. Keanu, either oblivious to or choosing to ignore the tension, smiled at his wife. Why not both? She's kept my life running smoothly for 8 years now. I think she deserves it. Marco, seizing the opportunity to insert himself into the situation and possibly save his manager from further self-destruction, stepped forward with a professional smile. If you'd like, Mr. Reeves, Mrs. Chen Reeves, I'd be happy to show you our private viewing lounge upstairs. We have champagne chilling, and you can see both the entire Hermes collection and our exclusive jewelry pieces without interruption. Vivienne shot Marco a look of mingled gratitude and resentment, grateful for the intervention, but furious that her junior associate was now taking control of what should have been her most prestigious client interaction of the month. That sounds nice, Keanu said with his characteristic laid-back charm. But honestly, I'm kind of wet from the rain. Not sure your fancy upstairs can handle this. He gestured to his damp jeans with a self-deprecating smile. Your upstairs would be lucky to have you, wet jeans and all, Alexandra said with the fond exasperation of a wife who both adored and was occasionally exasperated by her husband's humility. The small group of staff and onlookers who had gathered at a respectful distance couldn't help but laugh at the exchange, the warmth between the couple palpable and genuine. Vivienne, desperate to reassert control, stepped forward. Mr. Reeves is absolutely right. Our private lounge is comfortable, not pretentious. Please allow me to escort you personally. The revelation, as they ascended the curved marble staircase to Elysium's exclusive upper level, Vivienne walked slightly ahead, using the brief journey to compose herself. Behind her, Keanu and Alexandra followed at a relaxed pace, hand in hand, with Marco bringing up the rear, carrying the Hermes scarf and a selection of other items he'd quickly gathered. The private viewing lounge occupied the entire west wing of Elysium's second floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Milan's historic district. A plush seating area of cream leather sofas surrounded a low table of polished ebony, while discreet display cases lined the walls, their lighting designed to make diamonds and gold seem to glow from within. Please make yourselves comfortable, Vivienne said, gesturing toward the sofas with the practiced flourish of a stage magician. Marco, champagne for our special guests. As Marco moved toward the concealed refrigerator, Keanu raised a hand. Just water for me, thanks. Still riding the motorcycle home. The same for me, Alexandra added with a smile. But thank you. Vivienne faltered momentarily. In her extensive experience, no one refused champagne in the private lounge before recovering. Of course. San Pellegrino with lime, perhaps? As Marco arranged the waters and began displaying the selected items on the ebony table, Vivienne launched into what she clearly hoped would be a reputation-salvaging performance. I must say, Mr. Reeves, we're absolutely honored to have you visit Elysium. We've had many celebrities shop with us, Clooney, both Smiths, several royals, but few with your particular cultural impact. Her voice had taken on a quality of rehearsed intimacy, as though she and Keanu were old friends catching up. The John Wick collection actually inspired one of our menswear displays last season. Keanu, who had settled comfortably onto the sofa with his motorcycle helmet beside him, responded with polite interest, but his attention remained primarily on the items Marco was arranging for Alexandra's consideration. Vivienne pressed on. And Mrs. Chen Reeves, your architectural work is simply fascinating. The sustainable community center you designed in Los Angeles is revolutionary. This was a complete bluff. Vivienne had no idea what architectural projects Alexandra had worked on, but she was desperate to demonstrate knowledge and appreciation of both halves of the couple. Alexandra looked up from examining a pair of earrings, mild surprise crossing her features. You're familiar with my work? There was a dangerous moment where Vivienne nearly claimed detailed knowledge before recognizing the trap. Instead, she opted for a vaguer truth. I make it a point to research all aspects of culture and design. Architecture naturally falls within that sphere of interest. A flicker of something, awareness, perhaps amusement, passed across Alexandra's face, but she simply nodded and returned her attention to the jewelry. Marco, who had been watching this exchange with the rapt attention of someone witnessing a high-wire act, seized the opportunity to redirect the conversation to safer ground. Mrs. Chen Reeves, these star earrings you were interested in are actually part of a limited collaboration. Only 15 pairs were made worldwide. As Marco went on to describe the earrings' technical specifications, Vivienne found herself in the unusual position of being sidelined in her own private lounge. She stood awkwardly, unsure whether to continue standing like service staff or to seat herself alongside the famous couple, which suddenly seemed presumptuous. After a moment's hesitation, she perched on the edge of an adjacent armchair, her posture rigid with tension. "These are perfect," Alexandra decided, holding the star-shaped diamond studs near her face. Jennifer mentioned once that her grandmother used to tell her that stars were windows to heaven. This design really captures that sentiment. Keanu nodded in agreement. "She'll love the meaning behind them." He turned to Marco. "We'll take these and the scarf from downstairs." Marco beamed, delighted to have facilitated a significant sale. "Excellent choices. Would you like them gift-wrapped? Our packaging is quite exquisite." "Yes, please," Alexandra replied. "Something elegant but not too flashy." As Marco gathered the selected items and moved to the gift-wrapping station in the corner of the lounge, an uncomfortable silence fell between Vivienne and the couple. Keanu seemed perfectly content to sit quietly, his natural state appearing to be one of tranquil observation. Alexandra examined a catalog of watch designs with casual interest. And Vivienne, accustomed to filling any silence with polished small talk, found herself uncharacteristically at a loss for words. It was in this strained quiet that Alexandra finally addressed what had transpired downstairs. "You know," she said without looking up from the catalog, "I've always found it interesting how we form judgments about people based on such limited information." Vivienne stiffened, uncertain whether this was the beginning of a well-deserved dressing down or something else entirely. Alexandra continued, her tone thoughtful rather than accusatory. "When I was studying architecture, one of my professors said something I've never forgotten. He said that true beauty, in buildings, in objects, in people, reveals itself slowly and often in unexpected places." She looked up then, meeting Vivienne's eyes directly. "The greatest mistake we can make is thinking we can accurately assess value at a glance." The statement hung in the air, its layers of meaning impossible to miss. Keanu reached over and squeezed his wife's hand gently, a small gesture of support and agreement. Vivienne felt heat rise to her cheeks. In her 20 years of luxury retail, she had never been so elegantly yet thoroughly called out for her behavior. What made it particularly devastating was the complete lack of malice in Alexandra's delivery. This wasn't revenge or humiliation, but something that felt disturbingly like a compassionate observation. Vivienne began, then stopped, unaccustomed to being at a loss for words. After a moment, she tried again. "Mrs. Chen Reeves, I feel I must apologize for my approach downstairs. It was presumptuous and unprofessional." Alexandra waved away the apology with a small gesture. "We all have days when we're not our best selves." The grace in her response only made Vivienne feel worse. Keanu, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. "You know, I've spent most of my adult life being either underestimated or put on a pedestal, rarely just seen as a person." His voice carried its characteristic gentle rumble. "It can be exhausting either way." Vivienne looked at him, struck by the simple honesty of the statement and its relevance to what had just happened. "I imagine it would be," she said, and for the first time since they'd entered the boutique, her voice carried genuine rather than performative warmth. Marco returned with 2 exquisitely wrapped packages, the scarf in a slim blue box with a silver ribbon, the earrings in a small square box with a star-patterned paper that echoed the jewelry design. "These are beautiful, Marco," Alexandra said with obvious appreciation. "You have a wonderful eye for detail." The young associate beamed at the compliment. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen Reeves. It's a pleasure to assist you both." As Keanu reached for his wallet, Vivienne made a split-second decision. "Please," she said, "Elysium would like to offer these as a gift, with our compliments and apologies for any miscommunication earlier." There was a moment of silence as the couple exchanged a glance, communicating silently in the way long-married pairs often do. "That's a generous offer," Keanu said after a moment, "but we'd prefer to pay." His tone was kind but firm. The items have value, and so does the service Marco has provided. It's important to honor both. Vivienne nodded, understanding the subtle rebuke within the response. They didn't want special treatment, neither the negative discrimination Alexandra had initially received, nor the excessive accommodation Vivienne was now attempting to provide. They simply wanted to be treated with the same respect and fairness that should be afforded to anyone. As Marco processed the payment, Vivienne felt something shift within her. A perspective that had been fixed for so long suddenly knocked askew, allowing new light to enter. The learning. The transaction complete, Keanu and Alexandra prepared to leave, gathering their purchases and thanking Marco for his assistance. Vivienne, feeling that something important remained unsaid, stepped forward. "Mr. Reeves, Mrs. Chen Reeves," she began, then paused, discarding her usual script for something more authentic. "Thank you for your grace today. You've given me something to reflect on." Alexandra studied her for a moment, then nodded, seeming to recognize the sincerity in Vivienne's words. "The most valuable luxury is how we make others feel," she said simply. "Everything else is just stuff." Keanu smiled at his wife with obvious admiration before turning to Vivienne with a wink. "What she said, she's the smart one." As the couple made their way toward the stairs, Vivienne and Marco followed at a respectful distance. The main floor of the boutique had filled with more customers during their time upstairs, and a ripple of recognition moved through the space as Keanu became visible on the staircase. Near the entrance, a teenage girl who had been shopping with her mother froze mid-step, her eyes widening as she spotted the actor. When Keanu noticed her reaction, he did something that Vivienne found both shocking and revealing. He stopped to speak with her. "Hi there," he said with genuine warmth, as though they were simply two people crossing paths on a rainy day in Milan. The girl, momentarily speechless, managed to stammer, You're my hero. The way you live your life, not just your acting, you're so kind to everyone." Keanu seemed almost embarrassed by the praise. "That's really nice of you to say. What's your name?" "Sophia," the girl replied, visibly trembling with excitement. "Well, Sophia, that means a lot to me." He paused, then asked, "Would you like a photo?" As the girl nodded enthusiastically, Alexandra stepped forward with a smile. "I'll take it for you." Watching this interaction unfold, the world-famous actor and his accomplished wife taking time to create a memorable moment for a young fan, Vivienne felt something unexpectedly sharp and painful in her chest. When was the last time she had engaged with someone without calculating what they could do for her status or career? When had she last seen a person rather than a projection of what they represented in her carefully curated world? After the photo was taken and Sophia had retreated to her equally starstruck mother, Keanu and Alexandra continued toward the exit. Just before reaching the door, Alexandra turned back to Vivienne. "If you're ever in Los Angeles," she said, "the community center you mentioned, whether you actually knew about it or not," her eyes twinkled with knowing humor, "has a wonderful cafe on the roof garden. The view of the city is spectacular, and the staff treats everyone who walks through the door like they matter. Because they do." With that parting wisdom, the couple stepped out into the rainy Milanese afternoon, leaving behind a boutique buzzing with excited whispers and a luxury manager standing very still, experiencing something that felt uncomfortably like an awakening. The aftermath. The following morning, before Elysium opened to the public, Vivienne called an unprecedented staff meeting. The 20 employees gathered in the main showroom, exchanging curious glances. Their manager rarely addressed them as a group, preferring to delegate through department heads. Vivienne stood before them, looking somehow both perfectly put together in her designer suit and strangely vulnerable. "Yesterday," she began, "we had the opportunity to serve Keanu Reeves and his wife, Alexandra Chen Reeves." A murmur of excitement rippled through the staff. Most had heard about the visit through gossip, but few had witnessed it firsthand. "What some of you may not know," Vivienne continued, her voice taking on an unfamiliar quality of humility, "is that before I recognized Mrs. Chen Reeves, I did not provide the level of service we aspire to at Elysium." Marco, standing near the back of the group, watched his manager with astonishment. In 5 years, he had never heard Vivienne acknowledge a mistake. I made judgments based on appearance rather than treating her with the respect every person deserves when they enter our establishment. Vivienne paused, seeming to choose her next words carefully. This has led me to reflect on our approach to customer service and to recognize that we have perhaps lost sight of what true luxury really means. The staff exchanged glances, unsure where this unexpected confession was leading. Starting today, we will be implementing some changes, Vivienne announced. First, the customer classification system we've been using is hereby discontinued. This generated genuine shock. The coding system that categorized customers based on appearance and spending potential had been Vivienne's signature management innovation. Second, we will be partnering with the Milan Fashion Institute to create an internship program for students who might not otherwise have access to the luxury sector, she continued. And third, I would like to personally recognize Marco, whose approach to customer service yesterday exemplified what Elysium should stand for. As all eyes turned to him, Marco felt a combination of pride and disbelief. Vivienne had never publicly praised any employee in his memory. The essence of true luxury, Vivienne concluded, is not exclusivity for its own sake, but excellence in craftsmanship, design, and human interaction. We can maintain our standards without sacrificing our humanity. In fact, I believe they are inseparable. As the staff dispersed to prepare for opening, Marco approached Vivienne. That was unexpected, he said cautiously. Vivienne's lips curved in a small, genuine smile, an expression he had rarely seen on her face. Let's just say I received a master class in luxury yesterday, and it had nothing to do with products. 6 months later, Elysium had undergone a subtle but significant transformation. While still one of Milan's premier luxury destinations, the atmosphere had shifted from intimidating exclusivity to welcoming sophistication. Sales had actually increased, along with staff retention and customer satisfaction scores. Vivienne kept a small framed quote on her desk, visible only to her. The most valuable luxury is how we make others feel. Everything else is just stuff. She never mentioned to anyone that it came from a brief encounter with Keanu Reeves, but she thought about it daily as she greeted each person who walked through Elysium's doors, not as a potential sale, but as a human being worthy of respect regardless of what they wore or carried. And in Los Angeles, on the rooftop garden of a sustainable community center designed by Keanu Reeves, a package arrived containing a hand-painted Hermes scarf with a note to remind me that true beauty reveals itself slowly and often in unexpected places. Thank you for the lesson. Vivienne Blackwood, Elysium, Milan. Alexandra smiled as she read the note, then folded it carefully and tucked it into her pocket before returning to the community gardening class she was teaching. Dressed, as always, in simple jeans and a comfortable sweater, her inner elegance requiring no external validation. Reflections. What is it about celebrity encounters that so captivates our imagination? Perhaps it's the reminder that fame and fortune, those things many chase but few attain, don't necessarily correlate with character or happiness. Or maybe it's the satisfaction of seeing superficial judgments upended, confirming our hope that in a world often obsessed with appearance, substance still matters. The story of Vivienne Blackwood's encounter with Keanu Reeves and Keanu Reeves isn't just about a luxury manager humbled by a brush with celebrity. It's about the walls we build around ourselves. Walls of judgment, of status seeking, of believing that our worth is tied to external markers rather than internal values. What made this particular encounter transformative wasn't that Vivienne discovered she had misjudged someone famous. It was that she was met with grace rather than retaliation. The Chen Reeves couple had every opportunity to humiliate or dismiss her, to leverage their power and status to make her feel small. Instead, they chose to see her humanity, even when she had initially failed to see theirs. This choice, to respond to judgment with kindness, to meet exclusivity with inclusion, is available to all of us, famous or not. It's the choice to recognize that how we treat others when we have power says more about us than any possession or position ever could. As Keanu Reeves has demonstrated throughout his career, fame can be worn lightly, privilege can be used to lift others, and success can be measured not by what we accumulate, but by the positive impact we have on those around us. And perhaps that's the true luxury in life, the freedom to be authentically ourselves, to value others for who they are rather than what they represent, and to create connections based on mutual respect rather than mutual benefit. In a world increasingly defined by surface impressions and instant judgments, maybe the most radical act is simply to look deeper, to reserve our assessments, and to meet each person with the assumption that there is more to them than meets the eye. After all, we never know when the person in simple jeans and a well-worn sweater might have something profound to teach us, whether they're married to Keanu Reeves or not. What encounter has changed your perspective on judging others? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking content tomorrow.